staying on the subject of the first Biden impeachment hearing, completely ridiculous. And I have a light in the darkness for you here. Jared Moskowitz, the Democratic congressman, just took over for a few minutes this hearing and had some incredible moments calling out the absurdity of this whole political attack on Biden, despite the lack of actual damning evidence. And you have to see this. So first, here is him making this joke.
Seconds to Mr. Moskowitz. It's your lucky day. You get 5 minutes and 20 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's your lucky day. What a day we are having here, isn't it? Right? I mean, listen, as a former director of emergency management, I know a disaster when I see one. I mean, by the way, you don't believe me, just ask Steve Bannon. Steve Bannon, your guy, just went on and said, perhaps...
Whose guy is Steve Bannon?
Yeah, well, you know who Steve Bannon is. Steve Bannon just went on and said perhaps the Republicans shouldn't have started with a witness. He was talking about Professor Turley, who was going to say right off the bat that there wasn't an impeachable offense. I quote, he says, perhaps we should have put him on the...
We looked at that in the last segment.
...maybe list for one of our witnesses. So your other witness, Ms. O'Connor, gave a complete recitation of the last 9 months, 8 months of these hearings. She went through some of the greatest hits that have come out, right? Everything that has been presented, both in these committees that we've been having, on TV, all of the evidence that you guys have been presenting over the last 8 months, all of that together. And what does Professor Turley say? It says everything we know at this juncture doesn't rise to the level of impeachment.
So let me just say, it makes no sense. Separate from if you are someone out there who's conservative and you feel like the goods have been presented, you have to admit the line has been from the Republican Party in the House. The inquiry is where we're going to go from having some evidence to the really damning evidence. And we can disagree on where they currently are at, but just their own logic states that they need the inquiry to escalate what they have, to find the smoking gun, and then they'll be able to have a justified impeachment of President Biden. But if in the impeachment inquiry, you bring witnesses in to just restate what was stated in these oversight hearings that also were not bringing forward the smoking gun, and then your witnesses just go through and break down exactly what we've already seen, that we already know not to be proof of what you're saying you have proof of, then what is the inquiry for? You're just repeating what we already saw and you've admitted isn't enough for an impeachment. Then you have this from Jared Moskowitz.
Show you. It's a simple board, right? So all other presidents in the United States, 50% of the impeachments. Donald Trump, the other 50. Donald Trump has half of the impeachments in American history. But you know what? He's got 100% of the indictments. 100% of all indictments. 0 for the other presidents. Listen, let me do it another way. I want to channel my inner Tim Russert. So let me go to the board, right? And I don't have Florida. But Donald Trump, impeachments. Oh, how many impeachments? We got 2 there. How many indictments? We got 4. How many for Biden? 0. Donald Trump is right. He's sick of winning. He's just winning, running away with it. And that's why we're here. We're here because of math. That's what this is about. They can't save Donald Trump. They can't take away the 2 impeachments and the 4 indictments, but they can try to put some numbers on the board for Joe Biden. Yep. But the problem is when you sling mud, you got to have mud. And they just don't have anything, Mr. Chairman. So look,
So that was a great way to break it down. Why are they really doing this? It's to muddy the waters enough, not to get a bunch of America to believe that Biden has been proven to be this big criminal, the Biden crime family. It's not that. It's just get it blurry enough. Well, I mean, I'm hearing a lot about Biden impeachment, so maybe the Trump impeachments aren't that significant. And I don't know, they're saying he's a criminal, so are the Trump indictments as significant? And because of the way that a lot of these stories are reported on, it can come off that way to people. Okay, so one side saying things haven't been proven, the other side saying that they have a lot of damning stuff. So I don't know, it's just a lot Biden seems to have his issues too. They both have their issues. They're trying to balance that scale a little bit where it's not all corruption lands on the Trump side and all this wrongdoing lands on the Trump side. At least let there be a little bit of a blur to it and blur those lines between the difference between Biden and Trump and discourage people from going out as aggressively as they should against Trump being president again. And so that's why these hearings and these investigations to us are confusing, because we're thinking they're trying to prove what they're saying. And if they're accusing Biden of bribery, as I said, you got to have the Menendez level evidence to justify running around saying that. And there's some evidence on that one. With Biden, just nothing to justify saying you have proof he was bribed. And that's not the point, though. So it's confusing to us because we would want to actually prove the things we're saying. To them, they just need to let there be enough suspicion. And if they could add a tally to Biden's side with an impeachment, then it really, in a lot of people's minds, makes it a little bit more balanced between Trump and Biden, when it absolutely, obviously is not. And then just one more moment from Jared Moskowitz.
But look, let's go back at some of the previous comments that my colleagues have given. So the chairman, and I have a slide, the chairman goes on Hannity, right? You guys all know Sean. You appear with him on Fox News all the time, right? And Hannity asks a softball question, right? This is a total softball. Do you believe that this is now officially the Joe Biden bribery allegation, and do you believe you will be able to prove it? The chairman should have just said yes. But nope, he says, hope so, because he doesn't have any evidence. Couldn't say yes, right? Next slide, please. Then we have Senator Grassley. Grassley says what we all know out loud. We aren't interested in whether or not the accusations against Vice President Biden are accurate. Chuck, we know. We know you're not interested in the truth. Next slide, please. And then Donald Trump, he's giving it all away. We know he doesn't. He likes to show his cards. He says, I think had they not done it to me, perhaps you wouldn't have it being done to them. And this is going to happen with indictments, too.
Exactly. The Comer one is one I've brought up a lot. If anyone ever says, no, they have the smoking gun on Biden, then a quick response could be, why is it then that the guy who's been leading this investigation for months, when asked by Sean Hannity, are you going to be able to prove these allegations? His response was, I sure hope so. If he's been able to prove them already, he would say, I've been able to prove them already. If he was really hopeful he'd be able to, he would say, heck yeah, I'm going to be able to prove this stuff. We pretty much have it. I just want to kind of make it a little bit more thick, the stack of evidence that we have. But it wasn't that. It was, I sure hope so. Because his answer is, no, I'm not going to be able to prove this. But that's not the point, Sean. You goober. It's just to muddy the waters. A whole lot of headlines, Biden impeachment, Biden impeachment, Biden impeachment hearing, Biden, to make people think, there's problems on both sides with both candidates. That's the entire point.